But sometimes the Anzac legend tends to crowd out other key alliances we made in wars. During the Second World War, the enemy, Japan, almost reached our shores, but our army was in the Middle East. Instead, it was America who sent their soldiers here and from here onto the atolls and islands of the Pacific, and eventually Japan. But while they were here, the American Marines made friends and left behind many memories. A new exhibition in Wellington marks their stay, and Duncan Wilson went along to see what the real legacy of their time here was.
Wellington's Old St Paul's, the city's first Anglican cathedral, and now home to an installation marking the church's role during World War II, when 30,000 US troops lived and trained in the capital. The troops came to New Zealand because our soldiers were all overseas, fighting with the Commonwealth, and the country was vulnerable to a Japanese attack. The US troops won over New Zealand families and their women.
All of a sudden the streets were filled with these handsome men who spoke like film stars, who in green uniforms, and we didn't know who they were. And the only way we could get a good look at them was by going to Mass on a Sunday.
They worshipped together, danced and socialised, and many married. War affected them all.
Every time the ship came in, we went somewhere, pictures, and we danced. We had 2 lovely years. But after, when Warren died, it was a different thing altogether.
The St Paul's show explores these personal stories, but others say that US presence caused New Zealand to review its defence ties with Britain.
When you answer the call in World War II, again, you didn't realize at the time you're going to end up with a war in your own backyard. Draftees, if you will, they came to New Zealand and they loved it, wondering where they were when they were getting off the boat because they weren't told anything.
Gerald Hensley says New Zealand and Australia's wartime experiences with US troops led the two countries to seek a new alliance.
The Australians, more, you might say, hard-nosed and realistic than us, grasped immediately that the United States was the only long-term guarantee. And they fought and battled for a treaty with the Americans that would say this.
Hensley says ANZUS was strongest during the Vietnam War.
We were anxious to do something about Vietnam because we knew the British were pulling out of Southeast Asia. It was very unstable.
But he says ANZUS was kneecapped by its lack of deep roots in New Zealand's psyche.
I think the problem with the ANZUS relationship was it never had the deep roots in New Zealand thinking that, say, our relationship with Britain had. And so when the pressure came on in an unpopular war over Vietnam, then I think ANZUS suffered a great deal of damage.
Now, more than 65 years after US troops arrived on New Zealand soil, our country has no formal military alliances. An ironic thought to consider this Anzac weekend.
No formal alliances. Gavin, you were just